My name is Jennifer Witt, Director of ProjectManager.com, and I want to welcome you today to our session today on managing time on projects. This literally could be a thesis for me. I've done a lot of research, and on top of that, had my own experience like I know you have. So I want to welcome you for joining us today. We're going to take several areas to address today on managing time on your project. So as we begin, people are continuing to join the call. Again, I'm Jennifer Witt, Director of ProjectManager.com. Thank you for joining us. We want to note on the right-hand side of your computer there's a panel. It's called your GoToWebinar Control Panel. And you'll see on your right there's an area for questions. So we'd like to encourage you to ask questions. We do come on board with a lot of content, so if you've joined us before, you know I'm trying to get through a lot of content related to the topic, and we also want to take your questions as well. So that's where you will ask your questions. Tom Kellen is on here with me. If you can, Tom, say hello.
Hey there, everybody.
Hey, Tom, thanks for assisting us today and joining me again on this webinar. So Tom is in the background, and he's going to be answering and addressing some of your questions real time as we go along. So again, before this broadcast, we mentioned that you may have a lot of questions. We actually customize these webinars based on the questions that you do have. So I'd like to ask you to keep your questions related to managing time on projects, because we scan through the questions real time. So if there's others that aren't related, we still have to read through those too. So we'll get started, and again today we're talking about managing time on projects. So it's one of the challenges we have as project managers on just trying to manage not only our time but our team's time and keep everything on track. As many of you know, I'm very active on LinkedIn and many of the other social media outlets, and for those of you who are on the call, you're probably a member of LinkedIn as well. If you're not, you'll probably be interested to join LinkedIn, create a profile there. I'm also signed up to get from LinkedIn their week's top news, and here's one that came in just the other day, and it was so timely. And this is from the Harvard Business Review. The article is The Magic of Doing One Thing at a Time, and it's written by, as you can see the bottom, Tony Schwartz. Tony is the president and CEO of the Energy Project and author of Be Excellent at Anything. So this article, written in the Harvard Business Review by Tony, is about why is it that between 25 to 50% of people report feeling overwhelmed and burned out at work? It's not just the number of hours we're working, but also the fact that we spend too many continuous hours juggling too many things at one time. So this is a full article. There's a lot of great information that I know you on the call as project managers, I know for myself, it will resonate and certainly has a lot to do with this topic today. So related to time, again, this is a topic that I could feel like I could write a thesis on, because it's one of the issues that I myself struggle with a lot, is having enough time. So today we want to talk about time. We want to point out some best practices, some tips, and maybe some next steps for you to take. So again, remember, I come in with a lot of content related to these topics. So related to time, I want to talk about 9 time wasters that we probably all can relate to. 4 priority problems, and a 3-step perfection cure. And related to best practices, actually the 3-step perfection cures goes under the best practices and offer 6 best practices we found, and also 10 tips, and then to wrap up in the next step, 1 step that you can take that can assist you in managing your time more effectively. So if we look at the 9 time wasters, you know, if you can all relate to this, as we're going along, and you may want to, in the questions area or in the chat section, maybe point out or shout out, as they call it, shout out maybe some areas that you find that some of your greatest time wasters. But these are the common ones we find when we talk with teams, and these are the ones that I experienced for myself. But number 1, internet and email. A lot of times we can get so wrapped up in surfing the internet, Googling things. I know I'm a big advocate on social media, can lose myself in time on the internet and being involved in social media channels and being involved in some of the groups that I really enjoy and find value in. And then email. Just there's so many emails. I know I get hundreds of emails a day, and I know you do too, on all the different projects. And again, on this one, adding some of the social channels. Then there are distractions. The distractions you may have, whether you work in an office environment, people coming up to your desk. If you work in a home environment and a home office, you can have distractions there. Personal calls, people who know you're at work but maybe not respect your time at being at the office and want to call you to handle personal things that you may feel guilty or obligated to take. Unplanned meetings that come up that people maybe insist that you participate in. Other is pleasing others, having the propensity to have to please others and what other people want you to do or how they want you to do it, or maybe an approach that may not be the most time efficient. And non-pithiness is just going on and on about things, not knowing how to be pithy about what you're doing. And then there are the shiny objects, the bright shiny objects as they call them. There's over here, over there, you're working on something and something else more interesting comes up, and so you shift over to something else. Then there's also the administrative things that we have to be involved in. For employees, for sure, there are a lot of other administrative things that come up that you have to handle in addition to your own project work. And then there's travel. I know for myself, I'm a traveler, so whether I'm on a plane, train, or automobile, it takes time just to get from point A to point B. So those are some of the time wasters. So again, maybe if you want to just chat there, some of the things that you are having problems with that are wasting some of your time. So I'm actually had to switch over to a different computer. So we had a backup plan. That's a good thing. So here are the 4 biggest problems. I'm going to start from the top, so bear with me if I've already covered these. Again, the love versus hate. We spend time on things that we love versus things that we hate. It's just human nature. Things that we're good at doing, that we have a passion for, that we love, we're going to spend more time on those. We're more apt to do them. The things that we're less equipped for, have less passion for, maybe we don't have the experience or know how to do it, we spend less time. And if you're like me, I tend to put those on the back burner. And so those things are least likely to get done. Then there is the problem of overcommitting. So overcommitting to different things. I know that sometimes we as project managers have the superhero syndrome. And so with that, we try to do as much as we can for our customers and our clients, and that leads to overcommitting. Then too many priorities. One thing that we've learned and we see as project managers, but I know we tend to run into this, is too many priorities. So if everything is a priority, then nothing is really a priority. And a lot of times our stakeholders, our clients, want to make everything a priority. And this is where we can leverage our change control board to actually help us prioritize what the true business needs are, and helps us as project managers. And then not knowing leverage. A lot of times we spend time on things where we don't leverage. Maybe if there's something that we don't know how to do, and maybe there's someone in our group, so by not leveraging someone else's experience, expertise, or training, if we have to reinvent the wheel or learn how to do it from scratch, then it's better if we leverage someone who already knows how to do that. Maybe leveraging an organization or a team who's actually done a project that we're trying to do, or leveraging process or templates or something that already exists. So those are the things that cause us to get into problems with setting priorities. So those are things that keep us trapped. So if you want to, if again, you on the side panel there, if you want to ask questions related to time as we've requested, please keep the questions related to time. I see a lot on a lot of different subjects, but we'd like to take your questions. And also, you can also use the chat with each other to chat things that you're experiencing that you're also having problems with. The next thing is, what are the subtle traps with time that we experience as project managers? So allocating, whether it's ourselves or our team members, 100% of time on every project, not just one project, but every project. So we know even if we're on if we as the project manager or team members are just on one project, we're not really able to allocate ourselves 100% because there is a small percent of time, and sometimes from your finance department, you can get the formula of the time that is spent on admin, because a lot of times if you're an employee or even a contractor, a certain percent of the time is required on administrative tasks that are non-project related. So you have to back out that time. So a trap that we get into is allocating everyone 100% of their time on the project. Then another trap is guessing post-project time, the actuals that we spend, the time actuals, is if we're guessing, then we're not giving the true time actuals that we spent on task. Then staying stuck on a task too long. It's important for you, the project manager, if you're stuck on something, really leveraging other team members or other project managers or maybe even your manager or someone in your organization. But by staying stuck on a task too long, whether it's yourself as the project manager or one of your team members, then that's wasting time that you haven't planned for. Then tracking time with no systems. Many times I go into organizations or teams and I see they don't really have a system set up, not only a computer system or application, but they don't have a system like how are we going to track the time, when are we going to track the time, if anyone has to approve time. So there are no systems, and then also applications or systems, whether it's a timesheet or Microsoft Project or projectmanager.com, they're not utilizing things to track time appropriately. And then starting from scratch without templates. So if you have to, every time you start a project, recreate those templates or start from scratch, it wastes a lot of time. So you can many times look at other departments or groups within the organizations. You can also, if that's not available, for sure you can go out now and Google project management templates. I know we have some to offer on projectmanager.com, but there are templates available so you don't have to start from scratch. Then recreating process. I see some team members who are project managers who start their process just from scratch. And when you recreate it again, that takes a lot of time. So if you can also look at other projects or other organizations and start from something instead of having to recreate it. And then there's time, losing time finding documents. If there's no repository, no common repository that you yourself as a project manager or your team members can't find things, whether it's maybe the project charter, the project plan, or estimates, or test case scenarios. If people can't get access to those and they spend time trying to find those, then that's a big time waster. So those are subtle traps with time. So, you know, as we go as the project manager, so when we start the project, you know, we have the estimates have been completed, the budgets have been approved, the project has started, and your team is now already behind. So we ask ourselves, how does that happen? And because of some of these things we just talked about, it's you know, that's how we get behind from the beginning. So to be a great project manager, you need great time management skills. And however, your team also needs to manage their time carefully as well. So everything that you learn in how to manage your time more effectively is to be shared by your team, and constantly watching, coaching your team members so that they don't get stuck as well. And so today what we want to again share is some of the best practices and tips that we found. So I want to stop right now and just kind of, before we go into those, just kind of look at some of the questions. So I want to bring my buddy in, Tom, to see, do you have any questions here at this point?
There were some questions, or actually comments, about the time wasters. Unplanned meetings seem to be one of the highest ones on that. The one question is about an example of guessing post-project time actuals.
Okay. Yeah, so what happens is a lot of times, you know, if we as the project managers or the team members don't have a way to report their time, or if you as a project manager haven't set the process or the expectation that the posting of the time actuals is supposed to be done real time, then what happens is people, and again, whether this is the project manager, because I've seen project managers do this too, and typically it's done if there's no process in place. But what happens is people kind of just take a swag. They're like, I don't know, I can't remember. I can't remember if I spent a day or a week, or they can't remember. So they just, in an essence, to get it done, they just make something up. So that helps them get that time task off of their plate, but it doesn't help you as a project manager, because at the end of the day, if they're just guessing, making stuff up, whether they underestimate if they underguesstimate the actual or overguesstimate the actuals, then that doesn't help you as the project manager, because what typically happens is people overguesstimate, and then you end up over budget on your project. And so penalties happen not only to you as the project manager and the team, but a lot of times if there are vendors involved or organizational budgets, other people get penalized. So those are real dollars being tracked. But it usually has to do with lack of systems in place. And the unplanned meetings. The unplanned meetings, it has to get to, we're going to talk about some of the best practices and really owning your time as a project manager and blocking things out and having the ability to say no. So and having the discipline to say no and to block some of those things. So that's an excellent segue into the next session. And we do have a couple of questions here that we're going to address too. Someone says, what if you engage in things and that you don't want to stop? So this gets back to the things that we love. We're going to spend more time on things that we love doing. So I know for myself, I can kind of get, I call it in Jen's world, where I start working on something I love, and it's typically the creative process. And so we all can do that. So what we have to do is stick to time frames. And it's important, sticking to time frames is as important as the quality of the deliverables we produce. So if, like for myself, for creative process, what I have to do is say how much time I'm going to spend on that, because literally days, hours can be eat up with that. So for you as a project manager, or even watching your team members, is sticking to time frames, and it's a discipline thing. Another question is about procrastination, as they find themselves procrastinating on things. Again, that typically happens when we're working on some of the things maybe we're not equipped for. We procrastinate maybe because we don't enjoy doing it. Maybe we're not trained to do it or skilled to do it, so we procrastinate, we put it on the back burner. But another interesting thing has to do with fear, whether we're afraid to fail. Like, if I do this, will it be good enough? And so we procrastinate, or we maybe keep doing more and more to it, trying to make it perfect. So there's a little bit of fear involved in there. You know, if I do this, will I fail? So those are some good questions. The other one has to do with vacations, how to handle email. It's like when I go on vacation, I hate coming back on vacation, because then they get swamped spending too much time catching up on emails. You know, what I found is really, you know, our work life and our personal life kind of, you know, for me today, and how I've had to reconcile this is like, my work is part of my life, and so I do want to go on vacation. So I try to budget in my vacation time to keep my emails and my calls caught up, because at the end of the day, when I come back from vacation, I do have to address those. So I found a way that I can sit on the beach, or I can sit in the mountains, and I can handle emails and calls. I do put a time limit on it, but that helps me keep everything up to date, and I handle critical things. I do notify people that I'm going to be out. You know, I do block that out on my schedule. So if I'm, you know, on projects or multiple projects, I block that time out, communicate to all my team members that I'm going to be out, and so that they don't have the expectation that I'm going to be handling things. But, you know, if I do get a critical question, and it's about setting process, like how you want to handle things, and then keep things done so that you're not swamped at the end when you do return, because then if you get bogged down in that, that's going to throw you off track and definitely eat up a lot of time. So those are great questions. Again, this is a topic near and dear to all of our hearts and can put us in either the 20% of the successful projects or the 80% of the failed projects, or whatever the number is, depending upon what research that you reference. All right, so just want to check here to see if there are any other questions here. And before we move on. So
there was a question
we talk about, okay, go ahead.
Oh,
sure.
on delayed projects, like how to handle delayed projects.
Yeah, so delayed projects, I guess that could go a couple different ways. So a project that has been deemed formally delayed, in essence, your organization, your stakeholders, your change control board has formally said that this is a delayed project. Because that could be taken from a couple different perspectives. So that's the one I'm going to kind of run with. But if it's formally delayed, then you've got to look at the time allocation, like for yourself as a project manager and your team. So how you reallocate. So it's important to know if it's delayed, how long is it delayed? I mean, is this going to be put, I know for, you know, the past couple of years, many projects that we've been dealing with, maybe they're delayed. Something else within the corporation becomes a higher priority project, and due to budgetary reasons, they have to delay or postpone another project. So I'm going to guess for now that may be the perspective you're asking for, but it's important to know how long it's going to be delayed. And again, I'm going under the premise that this is formally delayed by your company. So again, know when it's going to be delayed, and like how are you going to reallocate your time as a project manager and your team members. And so do they go on to other projects? Because that will reallocate your time. But even if something is delayed, you have to, you as the project manager, spend time. You're going to have time allocated to do the necessary planning and things to put that project on hold. You don't just like abandon it. There are things that you have to do with, maybe if you have contractors, with contracts, you have to do things with the organization, you have to reallocate your team members. So there's a lot of planning. That becomes a little mini project in itself, is handling the delayed project. And then knowing, filing documents properly, so when that project gets reinitiated, then you can pick up where you left off. You know where the documents are, you know where you were in the process, you know your team members, and you know the status of where you are on the project. That could be sheer mayhem or chaos if not. So these are good questions. So I want to address something that we often find, and it has to do with the perfection. Because we as project managers, we're planners, we're schedulers, we like things in certain order, we like things done correctly and perfectly. And depending upon who's on your team, you probably have perfectionists on your team. So things get bogged down because you want to make sure the perfect product goes out. And so that can eat up a lot of time. Like you just can't get things out the door, get tasks finished, get deliverables produced because you just want it to be perfect. So I have a mentor, Alan Weiss, who says version 1 is better than version none. So at some point, the agreed upon quality agreements in your company for that project, once it gets to a certain quality level, then you have to release it and get moving. Otherwise, it gets bogged down. And then that's also how you approach things from a project manager's perspective too. So let's see, I'm trying to get my screen. So there's a cure. So what's the 3-step cure for perfection? So you prepare the best you can. prepare, prepare, prepare. That's what we're about. Prepare the best you can. Show up, whether it's for the meeting or your team or your project, and then like you go home, like you finish. You've got to let it go. So go home meaning let it go out the door, and then you start the project, you start everything all over again. Because if you don't look at it that way, you'll never get anything out the door, and you're just consumed. I mean, we all have a level of perfection, whether is it going to be accepted, is it going to be liked, what happens to me if I, as a project manager, release this process or this document out, and like what are the repercussions? So it gets back to fear. It's the fear of what if I let this go, and what's going to happen to me if it's not perfect. So we just have to keep those things in mind. We talked about in the past, in some of the other sections, some of the ways to manage time. And we found 6 best practices to manage time on projects. So when we talk about getting things done, we have to assign specific people and tasks and deliverables so that we know who is supposed to be working on what and when, and so that we also know who to go to answer those questions. Who do we go to address? If we find as project managers tasks and deliverables that are not meeting the timeline, maybe they're taking too long and the status is, they're always missing the status, we want a specific person, not an organization, but a person to go to and find out as project managers, how do we support that person? Do they need additional support? Do they need training? Do they not know how to do this? Gets back to leveraging other people on the project. Also, we need to know that for delegating tasks off of our plate, because as the project manager, our key role is to manage the project and to lead our team. So those are the areas that we're supposed to be focused on. So having other tasks and deliverables, we know who to delegate to. Number 2 is based on some of the research and findings of failed projects, and looking at why things are missed, why people aren't aware of what's happening in the project. Maybe they're working on incorrect or old versions. Maybe they're working on an old schedule and timelines. Is because they don't have online access to this information. So if you're passing things around by email, I've seen in some groups where it's still done by paper documents. So by providing online access to not only yourself when you're traveling or out of the office, or even if it's a remote office location, being able to have online access to your project plan so you can look at things and make decisive decisions. And you can look at your schedule, and your team can too. So knowing the timelines, and so that they realize, say, if they're working on something and they get behind, they need to be able to look at the schedule and see what other areas they may be impacting. And then updating time real time. We talked about, and even some of the questions were about the time, the guesstimates. So if we put the process in place and provide people with the ability to track time, real time and online, then what we find is that people will do that. They'll do that real time, and the estimates, the actuals are closer to what it really took versus some time in the future where they can't even remember what they worked on, so they're just guessing at it. Another one is report anything off track immediately. So as you as the project manager are watching things on your project, on your schedule, and you see things that are getting off track, it's important to find out what's happening and report anything off track immediately, because that's going to have downstream effects to critical components, maybe things on the critical path, other things that have dependencies. So it's important to let everyone involved know that that's off track and have a plan to get that back on track. Then number 5, escalate issues and risk quickly, because the sooner that you can escalate them and get them addressed, I mean, as soon as you can escalate them, the more quickly they can get addressed and least likely to waste time. And remember, if the more time that the other people on your team get bogged down, then you as a project manager are also going to waste time handling issues and risk. The worse they get, the more time, right? And the more time and the worse they get, the more people get involved, then different groups, different organizations, and then there are more meetings about more meetings about more meetings that you're spending on these issues. So the quicker that you can get them escalated and resolved, then the less time it's going to take from you and your team. And then it's important to submit changes promptly and make decisions quickly and rebaseline accordingly. By doing those things, that can make the difference between a failed project and a successful project, because a lot of times people will do things and they don't go through the proper channels to get things approved. Over and over again, I'm shocked to see that, you know, you use the process, you use your change control board to make the decisions and have them make decide what to do with the change request or something that may impact the schedule. Let them make the decisions and do it quickly. And then by rebaselining, again, by rebaselining, everyone is agreeing. Everyone on the change control board, the change control board representing the stakeholders and the clients, when we rebaseline, then everyone is agreeing, okay, this timeline shifted, you know, maybe we're spending more time, or maybe we've reallocated more budget or even more resources, and everyone's agreed. So by that, then you're not actually filling a project, even though you're spending more budget or using more time or hiring more resources. Any questions related to that, Tom, that you see?
No,
I see one that says, by what type of change do you suggest to...
No, go ahead.
Sorry?
Go ahead.
There's one that says, by what type of change do you suggest to perform rebaseline? For example, if project is change. Yeah, back on the changes, it's important to note that, you know, changes are going to happen constantly. It's just part of the process. So no matter what component of the triple constraint being, you know, the scope, the time, the budget, the quality, is utilizing your change control board. And by taking it through a formal change control process and allowing your board to decide, then you as the project manager, they're giving you the approval to perform the rebaseline. So I don't know if that clarifies your question. It's by Larita. I've got a question here. I have a question mark about making decisions quickly. This might lead to more change requests. So we're not saying make decisions irresponsibly without knowledge, but we as project managers have to get the information that we need and make decisions. And again, we leverage making decisions with our change control board, but I'm sure we've all seen where, you know, it's one of the biggest complaints. Decisions can never be done, so the team is left hanging, work continues to be done, people are tracking time on your project that's using resources, that's using budgets, and things just keep in a continual loop. It's, you know, then things don't get decided and everyone gets frustrated. So decisions do need to be made, and if it does lead to more change requests, well, you just put those change requests through your change request process. There have been many projects that I've worked on where they're large enterprise-wide projects, and you know, the changes were just, we had a whole team that did nothing but change requests. By taking them through, these are like hundreds of people on the team. This served large organizations, so there's a change request process where people were continually submitting those change requests. So we had a whole team managing those requests. Those requests would be sent to the change control board, and this particular change control board met, you know, several times a week. You know, that could be pretty standard for some large projects. So, you know, I wouldn't be, I guess, so concerned about how many change requests. I'd be more concerned about that there's a process in place and those change requests do get put in there. So these are some great questions. So the tips for time management is really about establishing good habits. You know, when we get back to looking at there's time management skills, like ourselves personally, and how we manage time and manage other people who want to take over our time. And it's establishing good habits. And what does that look like? Number one, it's purging clutter. Clutter can be whether it's, you know, documents laying around on your desk. It can be physical clutter. It could be physical clutter of documents, too many projects going on, you can't focus. Like I know if I have too many stacks laying around, I'll be working on something and then I'll start looking at my other stack. And I'm like, oh, I need to be working on that stack. So by clearing everything off and getting everything organized, it could be, you know, emotional clutter. So you can examine like emotional clutter, whether it's someone who keeps coming up and you know, maybe someone who keeps agitating you on the team, or maybe, you know, that could be a team member, it could be a client, it could be a stakeholder. But purging clutter is so that you can think clearly and that you can work efficiently. Number two is avoiding energy suckers and toxic people. So this can take up a lot of time. You know those people who come up and they want to dominate your time. So this is seen a lot when you're working in an office environment, which most people are. Most people are working in an office environment and they have those drive-bys. The people who want to stop by your desk, take up all your time, maybe criticize everything you're doing or criticize the team, or they come and gossip. They're the grapevine people. So avoid those people, and put policies in place so that they can't come take up all of your time, because that certainly wastes your time in your day. And remember, you as a project manager, whether you're managing one project or multiple projects, that's still your time. So the end result is, if you don't take control of that, then you're working late hours or you're working weekends, and that's also, when you're clocking time on your project, that's also your time and budget against that project. Establishing systems, so whether it's processes, how people work together, how they access things, so it's process systems and like literal systems, like having things involved where people can access the project, they can access the schedule, and they know how to track time and they know how to report different issues. Then number 4 and 5 together is blocking out working time and not working time. And this could be blocking out working time. For instance, if you know planned or scheduled meetings that you're going to be in, maybe you have meetings every week that you're going to be participating in, you need to put those on your calendar and block that out, because that is not available time that you have for work. And then also non-working time. That may be time for where people were asking about, how do I handle vacations? So if you are out on vacation or spring break or out for training, you need to block that time out on your calendar as well. I know for myself, I block out time in the morning for not only planning time, but also I have my workout time and I have my quiet time. So there's a certain time that I block out that people can't schedule meetings during that time frame. And then in the afternoon, I block out time. So after a certain period of time in the day, I also do my wrap-up planning, capturing things of the day, doing notes, answering emails and calls, and also trying to address other issues. Number 6 is a killer. It's syncing your devices. So for me, I know myself, I have an iPhone, I have an iPad, I have a MacBook Air, I have all these computers, and they all have calendars. And when I travel, whether it's just in another office location or traveling on the road to a different city or place, if I don't have that synced, it's a killer, because people are always calling or emailing wanting to set up meetings. So, and then what happens is, if those aren't synced, then you can overbook yourself, overcommit yourself. So you want to be able to have those synced up so you know your true schedule. Number 7 is allocate calendar access so that people can know your time, so they'll know if you're blocked out. Then then those unplanned meetings that we were talking about, then people can't, overcommit you or overschedule those. And that leads into number 8. You have to be able to say no and set boundaries. And I think this is one of the hardest lessons that project managers have to learn is people are looking at you to lead, be the leader, lead. You have to say no and you have to set boundaries. Otherwise, you have too many people that you're accountable to or responsible to or work with who can just take over your schedule and clutter your time. And then what happens? You're working late, you're working weekends, and you're constantly behind. And so that doesn't set yourself up for success, nor does it set your project up for success. And with that, also stopping the drive-bys, stopping the people who camp out at your desk, just drive by and drop the hot potatoes. I call the hot potatoes those issues or problems that maybe someone else has been working on and maybe they don't want to fool with it anymore, maybe they don't know how, or the person that they need to work on it they don't like, so they drop it on your desk. So you have to keep the hot potatoes off of your desk and redirect those to the proper people. And then changing routines. It's important to change the routines when your routines really change. Because a lot of times, I know for myself, I have to constantly go and evaluate. Am I even doing that anymore? Am I even working with that client anymore? Am I working on that project? Then why is this stuff on my calendar? One time a couple of months ago, I looked and I still had repeat meetings on my calendar that for groups that I was no longer meeting with. So keeping those things cleaned up. So those are some of the things that keep us trapped and keep us from not only being able to manage our time effectively, but also if it happens to us, it's happening to our team members. It's human nature. It's one of the most difficult things that we have is managing our time effectively. So I want to see if we have any more questions coming in.
Yeah, Jen, there were a couple on how to deal with the energy suckers, and how to, what kind of a policy you can have to protect your time from energy suckers.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things here. One has to do with, there are a couple aspects. So here's the first one I want to deal with. What I found is, and I had to play with this because when somebody first told me this, I was like, no way. So, and you can try it, see how it works for you. But so being in different office environments, when people see you there, especially if you kind of come and go, so as a project manager, you're probably rarely at your desk. I'm hoping that's the case because most of our time is out building relationships, meeting team members, meeting stakeholders, doing all types of things. So when people see you on site or at your desk, they think, oh my gosh, she's only going to be there for a short time, so I better nap her while I can. So they'll come camp out and they'll want to ask you the 1,000,001 questions because in fear that, oh my God, she may not be back again. So by making yourself available, having a policy, having a clear policy to your team to say, this is when I'm going to be available. And so this has to do with like an open door policy. So while you're there, say open door policy, because what we found is, and I had to experience this on my own, I was like, oh my God, if I tell them open door, then people are going to be coming and going. But it has something to do with people feel comfortable that, oh, okay, if she's there, I know that I can go approach her anytime I want. And so what happens is people are least likely to come camp out at their desk. If they feel like they can, when they do have a problem, address you or approach you or do have access to you, they're least likely to come camp out. So you can play with that on your own. I had to do that for myself, but it's having a clear policy and having people on your team having access to you. But it gets back to the boundaries. You have to. People's behavior will be how you train them. So you as a project manager have to train people how to deal with you. If you are out of the office, how are they going to reach you? Are they going to be, because if these are team members who come by your desk, or if it's a stakeholder, change control board member, an energy sucker could be anyone. It could be your team member. It could be it could be another project manager. It could be a mentor or mentee. can be anyone at any level. So letting people know, you have to train them how to work with you. Let them know when you're going to be there. If they leave phone messages, when are you going to call them back? It is important to call people back, but let them know. If you leave a message, I'll call you back within 90 minutes. And then do your best to call back in 90 minutes. And then people are like, oh my God, I get too many calls. Well, when people put these processes in place, they find that they're least likely to be clobbered because people know how to work with them. So if they email you, let them know what the expectations are. When will they hear back from you? If they leave phone messages, when will they hear back? If you're in the office, what are your hours? And redirecting. So the other is like for energy sucker is redirecting them. And you can say no, and you can interrupt people. So if an energy sucker comes up, you can interrupt them and say, look, this is a very interesting topic, but I have deliverables that I'm accountable for, or have a meeting I have to prepare for. So you can redirect them. You can also interrupt them and set boundaries. But more importantly, let them know and train them how to best work with you. So there are many questions. Again, this is like one of the areas. If you boil it down to the 3 best ways to manage time on projects, the key is to really organize yourself and organize your work. It has to do with discipline. Discipline is a big thing no matter what we do, no matter what profession, no matter what role we play, discipline. And knowing that there are things that we have to watch for. It's important because it allows you to control your day and your project. And the more you control, then the more you can do the things that you love to do. The rewards is great, so it's worth the time to get it done. It provides an advantage because people are going to assume that you will get things done, and people have more respect for you. A lot of times people have said to me who work with me, you're like, oh my God, you make things look so easy. So they make an assumption that I'm not doing anything. But they don't realize that I have the discipline to get in. Like if I'm on a client account, I may get there at 6 and do my planning and things from 6 to 8. And so when people get in, when I know people are going to get on site at 8 a.m., then I'm available to do relationship building, talking with people, handling any issues or risks that are going on. So, it's organizing yourself, organizing your work, and being disciplined. And then the other is sharing project plans easily. So the more you can share information on your project with others, then they can also plan effectively. They can plan effectively. They know what they're supposed to be doing when. They know who to be expecting, deliverables or other contingent work. Who is it coming from? When will it be there? They know who to address, who to escalate to. And so it's just helpful to not only you as the project manager, but also your team. And then managing team activities online, again, that gets back to the same principle of having a way online that people can not only collaborate with you as a project manager, but also among themselves. So by doing that online, more and more we see people are remote from each other, and they could be in the same building and be on a different floor. They can be in the same city, or they could be in the same, they could be international. But by having things online, then it's easier to manage the team activities as you as a project manager, but also the team members know how to as well, and they can collaborate independent of you as well. And then track time in real time, because that is what we find to be one of the killers. If not, it's just guesstimates, and it not only derails the project, not only derails the team, but also the project. So those are some of the things that we found. So many people ask, like, where can I start? We get a lot of questions about, well, I don't have a system or tool or the ability to do that. I don't have templates. I need some help so I don't have to recreate things. So where can we start? So by listening to everyone and going into so many organizations, we incorporated these capabilities into projectmanager.com. So you can track your time and your projects. So There are dashboards available, project planners, reporting, ways to manage team activities, track results, and collaborate online. So by doing that, it helps you as the project manager. So you may ask, well, where can I start? So there's one step that you need to take if you want access to some of this stuff, and it's projectmanager.com has a free trial that you can start, and you can experience some of this stuff and see what the dashboards, what some of the planners, templates, and some of the software tracking looks like that can assist you. So again, time is one of these topics where I started the program by saying I could literally write a thesis. These are just some of the top things that we as project managers, you and your team deal with, that we wanted to address today. There's certainly more. This isn't an end-all, be-all of everything, because this goes on and on. There are many different aspects that we could address these, but these are some of the important ones we wanted to share. So we hope by identifying some of the 9 time wasters, talking about some of the priority problems and the time traps, and wrapping these up in some of the best practices and tips, that we hope these will help you in managing your best projects, your projects, and knowing what next steps to take. So I hope you'll join us next month as we have another session planned. If you've missed any in the past, you can access those on projectmanager.com. This will be recorded and posted on the website at projectmanager.com. And we hope you sign up now and join us on projectmanager.com. Thank you, and have a great day.